Hello. I'm sure as many of you know, I play Hearts of Iron 4 nearly daily at this point, and I've racked up over 4,000 hours. So, knowing this, I went over to r/HOI4 over on Reddit, and I made a post. Officially, at 4,000 hours in this game, ask me anything. And I got tons of responses, tons of questions, so I figured I'd go over a few of those and make a video over it, help out a bunch of people who are just starting to get into the game or whatnot. So, let's get into it. Alright, what's it like to have finally beaten the tutorial? Well, honestly, I don't think there really is any beating the tutorial, air quotes there. The game is constantly evolving, always new content coming out, new stuff to learn, new stuff to do. So, always kind of feel like I still have something left to master, and with that, that's honestly one of the main reasons I've continued to put as much time as I have into this game. There's always something new to do and something new to learn, and I think that's one of the big selling points that the game has to offer, honestly. Alright, let's move on to the question I probably heard the most. How does Navy work? Alright, so Navy is pretty complicated, honestly. It's probably the most complicated part of the entire game. So let's go get off Reddit, hop into HOI4 so I can show you some things about it. Alright, so over on the US, the country that starts the game with the second largest navy, and very quickly, due to their higher dockyard count than anyone else really, progresses into having the largest navy in the game. So the navy is broken down into a few different boats, I guess, right? So you have your destroyers, your cruisers, your battleships, your carriers, and your submarines. Cruisers also break down into heavy and light. Battleships break down into super heavy, regular battleships, and battle cruisers. For carriers, you do have converted carriers where you essentially just take a battleship and convert it over to a carrier. And then submarines, there's cruiser submarines, and then there's also like carrier cruisers, but that stuff really isn't that important. That stuff is kind of more very niche and nation specific. But all in all, what it breaks down to is these 5 sections. So you have your destroyers, which will be the backbone of your screens, right? Let's go ahead and merge this fleet together. So you see, destroyers are the main thing in this fleet, and they should be the main boat, or at least the boat you have the most of in any of your fleets. Their main job is simply to take hits, right? They're there to screen, right? So I personally split destroyers into 3 categories: ASWs, or anti-submarine warfare, gunboats, and your just regular run-of-the-mill destroyer, right? So let's take a look at those 3. Pop the console open, get some XP. Alright, America has destroyer 2s, here they are. Alright, so let's start with anti-sub warfare, right? Quite simple. Anti-submarine warfare, right here. You're just gonna go slap some depth charges on there, and a battery. I prefer the dual purpose to the regular one, because that'll also give you some anti-air, as you can see. And this is quite simple. This works. Personally, I would like to upgrade these to depth charge 2s. We're gonna go ahead and grab another cheat, research on icon click, which will allow me to go ahead and grab depth charge throwers, which will give us depth charge 2s. Right. Also, does not hurt to kit these out to actually be able to defend themselves. With some fire control and sonar. You definitely need the sonar on there. That's how they detect the subs. You can't not have that. And it doesn't hurt to have some torpedoes and whatnot. And then obviously you're going to go ahead and apply whatever designer you think works best for you. I'm going to go with Newport here. Give my destroyer some extra 5% HP. So this will be kind of your basic run-of-the-mill anti-sub destroyer. Obviously, that will upgrade as you get better fire control systems, and your sonar will also upgrade as you get better radio tech. Did not mean a research guided missiles there. No, you don't need those. And now you see, upgrade this, and they upgrade. Alright, so me in the future here actually made a mistake. Sonar is not researched in the engineering tab. The upgrade for it is in the naval tab right here. Boom. Moving on. Save as new. Gunboats. These are my run-of-the-mill destroyer that I make, right? Made to be as cheap as possible and still be able to defend itself, right? As you can see, literally less than 1,000 production costs. You will be pumping these things out all day, every day. And these will be the main run-of-the-mill destroyer that I will deploy. Literally, entire job is just to take hits so that your more expensive ships and your better ships don't. Simple as that. Alright. Could have sworn I saved this new. I did. Decommissioned that one. And then last but not least, you have your standard destroyer, which very similar to your ASW destroyer, in all honesty. Main difference is instead of 2 depth charges here, you'll probably go with a dual purpose battery and a torpedo. Now, of course, you'd get better torps. Right here, not that. Right here, this will give you the improved torpedo, which, as you can see, you get to do that then. Or, of course, you can do all torps, or you can do all guns. Now, if you don't have the dual purpose, because they are a later game tech, you don't get these until 1940 nearly. But America and the UK, and I believe Japan as well, start with these. Just using the regular old light battery is fine, so long as you do make sure you put some AA on there, because AA is extremely important. Alright, next we'll move on to cruisers. So cruisers, again, break down into 2 categories, your heavy cruisers and your light cruisers. America starts with both. So hopping into the heavy cruisers, these are my preferred capital ship. They're not as good as they used to be. They used to be extremely good, because what you used to be able to do is put the medium battery here, or the heavy cruiser battery, right, to make it a heavy cruiser, and then you used to be able to come in here and put the light cruiser battery on there as well, essentially making these heavy cruisers that would sit in the back just absolute screen killers. And it was the best thing you could do for the Navy at the time. You can't do that anymore, they nerfed that, but what you can do is, so level 3 armor, your secondary battery here, your engine goes there. Go ahead and get radar, not sonar, but radar. Then you're going to want your fire control, AA, your medium battery. You'll grab another medium battery in the, what are these called? The aircraft facilities, the catapults. These add surface and sub detection, which will allow these ships to be better at detecting the enemy, which obviously is important. You can't shoot what you can't see. And now normally I would also fill this out with another heavy battery, but you see, due to the restrictions of the London Naval Treaty, this isn't exactly viable. Can't build this, right? I can save it, but you see, can't build it because it's over the limit that's allowed. So obviously dealing with the Naval Treaty is an absolute pain. So what would you do? Well, here is what I prefer to do when I have to deal with the Naval Treaty. Alright, so this is about the best you can get when it comes to a heavy cruiser that you can use pre-getting some bonuses that will start fixing the London Naval Treaty issue, whether it's just getting it completely expunged and gotten rid of, or simply Italy and Japan leaving the treaty, increasing the limit as to what you're allowed to build. Now, obviously, you can switch some things. These 3 appear around for whatever you like. These 3 aren't as important. But you kind of have to have everything that's down here. These are basically required for the cruiser to function as intended. Simple enough is that. Then you have the light cruiser. This is also a screen ship along with your destroyers, and the only difference here between the light cruiser and the heavy cruiser, the only thing that makes them different is which medium battery you put on here. or battery it off. You put a rapid fire gun, that will also make it a light cruiser. But I much prefer the light cruiser battery 2s. And then obviously, once more, radar. And this is about the design I would normally use. Again, issue, this is just slightly over the London Naval Treaty limit. What I go ahead to do to fix that is I'll just get rid of that catapult. And this works. Now, obviously, you can swap that catapult out for more AA. You can swap it out for a, not a secondary battery, but I think a rapid fire. Yeah, there we go. A dual purpose rapid fire is always decent. I think actually, if you swap that, you can throw on another one here, maybe. Yeah, you can do like one of the level 1 ones if that's more your thing. You can put torpedoes if that's what you want to do. I wouldn't recommend it. This, though, is what I would go with. And then obviously, don't forget your designer. Those are extremely important. And this would basically be the light cruiser I would run with. Alright, battleships. These things are essentially the, I don't know if meta is the right word for what they are right now, but they're definitely up there. Go ahead and research the battleship and the super heavy as well. So we'll get back to the super heavy in a second. We're going to start with the regular battleship here. So battleships are split into two categories: the battle cruiser and the actual battleship, completely determined by which armor you put on here. Now, you can put super heavy armor on a regular battleship. Don't. There really is no reason to. Personally, when it comes to dealing with the confines of the naval treaty, I prefer the battle cruiser armor and building battle cruisers. Go ahead and get your secondary battery, your radar, your fire control, your AA. Go ahead and get your heavy batteries. And you want as many of these heavy batteries as you can afford to have and still be within the confines. So as you can see, that is only 2. Then secondary batteries, you can't go wrong with those. And last but not least, go ahead and grab, no, wrong menu, AA. Now, you can swap one of these secondary batteries out for a catapult. Again, those add surface and sub detection, so that's pretty good. In fact, this is actually what I would normally roll with. That you can switch out for this if you really want to, but it doesn't really matter. Especially if you're dealing with the AI and not playing, say, in multiplayer, for example. But this is basically what I would run with for my battleship that needs to be within the confines of the naval treaty. Now, I'm going to save that, and I'm going to save as new here. Now, if I was building an actual battleship and using the battleship armor, you see that that just barely is above what's allowed within the naval treaty. And you can go ahead and fix that simply by taking off this AA, which in America's case, you really don't need because you have the secondary batteries. And we already have 9 AA, even without it, because we have this extra one down here, and then those 2 secondaries. So this still works if you want to build the battleship, but as you can see, the production cost of that is a little bit higher, about by 100 higher than the battle cruiser here. So it really is just up to you. They both work. They're just different for different situations, that sort of thing. Then you have your super heavy. Now, in my opinion, these things are basically just a meme. They're really good. They're just extremely expensive, especially the way I like to build them, which is just as, well, almost as expensive as possible. This is what I like to build. These things are absolutely amazing. They will destroy anything, right? Like 135 heavy attack. These will rip anything to shreds. It's a bit overkill, if I'm being honest, and ridiculously expensive. It would take years to produce even one of these. But if you do it right, you really only need 1 or 2. Now, I wouldn't really recommend doing this on anyone other than America and Japan. And the only reason I recommend Japan is because they have a focus over here, the ultimate battleship, which gives them 2 Yamatos, 175%, 150% complete. Those are 2 super heavy battleships that are basically already done. Now, those super heavies that you get aren't the best, so I will always send them back into port to refit into a better design, somewhat closer to this. Now, you don't have to do this. You can always swap that out for an AA and swap this out for that. I would actually prefer if you did this, and then swap that for a secondary battery. If you really want to make it cheaper, that makes it a bit cheaper. These big super heavy batteries are super expensive, and the super heavy armor is also super expensive, but honestly, I think it's worth it. I hit reset on accident. I'm not going to build that again, though. Alright, then next up, you got the carriers. Carriers are honestly the simplest of all of them. This is kind of your basic carrier. This is what it comes with. You can go ahead and put on some cruiser armor. I'd recommend it. Radar doesn't hurt. And you start with 3 hangar spaces, which you can swap out for, say, deck armor, or even AA if you so choose. Personally, I prefer just either keeping the 3 deck armor, or sorry, not deck armor, the decks, the hangar decks open. I think you need at least 3 to make your carrier even worth producing. And then you can either go with the extra hangar deck, which as you can see you can't afford under the naval treaty, or you can throw on a secondary battery or some deck armor, also can't afford under the naval treaty. So this is usually just what I'll build early on until, again, the naval treaty goes away. Alright, next up on the list is submarines. These ones are probably about just a little bit more exciting than the carriers, right? You get your engine, you get your torpedo, and you get your torpedo. Simple. Now, just by default, these will have 20 surface detection. That's fine, that is acceptable. You really don't need higher than that, but if you really find that your subs just aren't cutting it, they aren't able to detect their targets, you can go ahead and slap a radar on there, and that will increase the surface detection without actually hindering your sub visibility, which is how easy it is to detect your submarine. Now, in the case of Germany is one of the edge cases I was talking about. Down here, they have U-boat effort, which adds cruiser submarines. So I'm actually going to tag over to Germany real quick and show you what those are about. Alright, so here is the cruiser submarine. As you can see, compared to the Sub 2, which only has 1 slot up here and 2 down there, this is 2 down there and 3 up here. So obviously, all you can put in here is a torpedo. You do that. Here's the engine slot. You get that, obviously. Now here's what these have that makes them good. They have fuel tanks and aircraft facilities. Fuel tanks will increase the range by 1,000 kilometers. Alright, that will allow your submarines to, instead of stopping about here in the middle of the Atlantic, they'll start being able to reach the confines of the American eastern seaboard. And then obviously with mill access with Italy, if Italy still has control over Ethiopia, you'll be able to start reaching out into the Indian Ocean. And if you're able to get military access from Japan, you will literally be able to convoy raid everything except like the southern Atlantic here, which you can fix that simply by getting a docking rights from Venezuela, which you can literally get day 1. And that will give these full range to convoy raid the entire world. Now, don't actually have the technology that can go here, so we're going to go ahead and grab it. If I remember correctly, it is the radar tech that goes here. Get that radar, that will add more surface detection, allowing your sub to, again, see better. And then for this last spot, I usually do another torpedo for just to double the attack. But if you, again, find that that 1 radar is not enough surface detection at 33.6, somehow isn't enough surface detection, you can go ahead and get a float plane catapult, which will then allow it to get an extra 7 surface detection. Again, I think that's a bit overkill, especially if you have the radar. Now, of course, this is with the 1940 radar, so if you have like radar 1, then it'll be a bit worse. And if you have radar 2, it'd be slightly better than that. But there's really no reason not to put this out with a torpedo. And if you really need the extra range, for some reason you just can't get mill access, go ahead and put another fuel tank on there. That'll give you 7,000. But this is my go-to for cruiser submarines. And then, of course, don't forget this. Minus 5% sub visibility is amazing. Down to 19 sub visibility. They're not finding these things. And then on top of that, in fact, if you were to go ahead and get snorkels, you can replace the radar with a snorkel, which I would do that, honestly. The 21 surface detection is honestly fine. It's not that bad. You don't need the radar. I would take the snorkel over the radar as soon as you get it. And these things do, in my opinion, outcompete sub 3s, because sub 3s, if we go ahead and look, while they have the same number of slots, they don't get that fuel tank. And even with the better engine, that does not increase their range. The range still sits at 5,000 kilometers. Now, I do believe once you get over to sub 4s, if you research that far into the game, then sub 4s become better than cruiser submarines, because you don't need to waste a spot on a fuel tank, because these do up to 6,000, so you can go ahead and put another torpedo there, get the torpedo there, and then get your snorkels there with a torpedo there. And this will be the best submarine in the game that you can get right here. Honestly, quite simple, a bit more complicated than carriers, but still pretty simple. And that is the basics of Navy. Now, remember, don't forget to come in here and research your depth charge throws, your active sonar, your better armors. Don't forget to come over to the naval support, get better ammunition for your boats. You're going to want to get damage control, fire control methods. If you're planning on doing naval invasions, upping your landing craft tech will be important. Don't really worry about mines too much. They aren't that important. They are good, but no one really uses them. And I don't think that's something you really need to worry about if you're watching this video, just learning the basics. Alright, so another thing I got a lot of questions about was simply how do you defeat larger armies in the endgame? Well, coming back over to this Germany game here, in fact, I'm actually going to just load up one of my save games. This was one of my single-player save games, playing Hungary. Now, this is one of those saves where the AI has just spammed out tons of divisions and is an absolute slog to push through. Now, remembering what my army was here, as you can see, I don't have tanks. I did not go tanks this game. But I do have an air force. Now, when you don't have tanks, you need air. As you can see, I have nearly 3,000 close air support deployed, and have another. I actually don't have much in stockpile right now. It is literally all deployed across all of the front lines we've been fighting in the middle of invading Greece. So I have cast down in Greece. As you can see, air is extremely important. We've lost 18 fighters. We've killed nearly 400. Now, our CAS hasn't done much yet, simply due to the fact that we haven't actually begun the offensive yet, but I can tell you that an offensive into Greece here wouldn't be too difficult, simply because, again, they're just absolutely losing the air war. I'm just waiting to grind their fighters down a bit more before I start sending my CAS in. My CAS is also quite busy over here in Russia, as you can see, where we're doing a lot more CAS damage. Now, if we were to tag over to Russia real quick, because Russia is one of those... Sorry. They're tagged Soviet, not Russia. Russia's one of those nations that just spams out divisions. And as you can see, they have nearly 400 divisions in their army. And almost all of those, right, bar a few that are over here, fighting the Netherlands, who has capped Japan, you can see that they kind of spammed out divisions across the entire front line. Have a huge army. This would be an absolute pain and an absolute slug to deal with. If we go look over at France, who hasn't capped yet, you can see they also have an absolutely massive army, 155 divisions. You can see the UK is 207. America, who isn't even in the Allies yet, has around 200, right? Those are ridiculous numbers to deal with. But if we go back to Hungary here, you'll notice, if I were to say on pause here, despite these ridiculous numbers of Allied troops, we can push quite swimmingly, simply with air. Air is king. Air is literally everything. And if you need to know what decent air looks like, this actually might be pre-patch. I'll have to look at my air design. Yeah, this is a decent fighter. It's not perfect. It's not the best. Obviously, I'm a bit strapped for resources, as Hungary don't have enough rubber, hence why this is kind of mediocre. I honestly this is not what I would normally use. First off, upgrade that to engine 4s. Then we're gonna go ahead and add a armor plate here, and I would add a drop tank. If I had it researched, I'm actually gonna go ahead and turn research on. Icon click on. And we're gonna go ahead and research the drop tank and put that here. This is what I would call your standard thing, your standard fighter. This is what I would normally use. This is solid. This will more than enough get the job done. Then if we go look at the CAS, again, this CAS is not the best I would use. Completely strapped for resources here. That should be on engine 4, and there should be another small bomb bay here. As you see, the weight exceeds thrust. We're actually going to do this. You can do this as kind of your basic CAS. Go ahead and add dive brakes and light MG defense. And you do self-sealing fuel tanks if you have the rubber for that. And you can't go wrong with armor plates. And as you can see, you can also throw in a bomb lock or a rocket rail. I wouldn't recommend the rocket rail. It isn't that good. Just go with the bomb lock. And this is a solid option for your close air support. But you see, even with this mediocre close air support I have here in Russia, can easily push the AI back without much issue here. Just absolutely blitzing them. And this is with there's only 700 casts in this region. Right? So imagine if you had 3,000 casts all up in that one area. I only have 3,000 casts in total. Playing Hungary would do that to you. Right? So that's simply how you deal with the late game division spam the AI would do. That and of course tanks. Alright, so moving on. Here we are in the land of the Far East in Japan. Now another question I got asked quite a bit was, my naval invasion's not working. Why? How do you do naval invasions? Naval invasion this, naval invasion that. So I'm going to show you. Alright, so select your divisions that you want to naval invade with, preferably your Marines. I'm actually going to go ahead and throw some infantry in this division as well, just to showcase a little trick I use. Alright, so select the 3 divisions that you want, or however many. I prefer 3 per invasion, max. You're going to then come down here and hit this little anchor symbol. You're going to left click that. You're then going to left click the port you want to launch from. It has to be a friendly port. They're all highlighted in blue, all of your available options. The unit will automatically then move to that port to begin planning its invasion. You then want to right click the provinces you want to land on. You can right click multiple provinces, and depending on which one you click first determines how many you can click after that. So you could say line up a huge invasion like this. Now, I don't personally do it like that, but that is a possibility for you to do. I prefer to do, take these 3, right click that there, and then I will take 1 division, land it there, 1 division here, land it there, and so on and so forth. Landing all around the port. Any tiles that you can land on that are adjacent to the port, I would suggest landing on them. What will often happen is that the AI may only have divisions in the port, so what will happen is you'll land there, you'll land there, you'll land there, you'll land there, and then you can use those to attack into the port to support your naval invasion. Now remember, those units won't be getting any new supplies, so do be careful, and if another division comes up and begins to attack them, I suggest you stop your offensive into the port, because you will start to deorg, and you can get deorg deleted from not having anywhere to retreat to or not having any supply. Then continuing that, where did I leave off with? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're going to go ahead and I do suggest landing in more than 1 port in each area you'll be landing in, if possible. Right, so landing here in Qingdao, China, I would set these invasions up like so. this would be kind of my basic invasion for Qingdao. If I were to say be invading the UK, I would be landing preferably not in England, because getting across the channel is painful. I prefer to land up here near Newcastle and Hull. I would land here, here and here, here, here and here. And if I have some spare divisions, maybe up here near Roseth, and that'd be that. So as you can see, these arrows here, these two here, look quite a bit different than these. That means that no divisions are actually assigned to this order. Reason being, if you go look at the naval invasion tech that's here, the transports only allow for naval invasion capacity plus 10. Naval invasion capacity 0 by default. Get this, that'll give you 10. Alright, I almost gave some false information out here because I didn't realize they changed something. So tip of the spear used to grant additional naval invasion capacity, though it looks like with special forces doctrines being added, that is now the first marine technology. So you go ahead, get 60 army XP, and you can go ahead and unlock that. That'll grant you an additional 5. Then you can come and you can grab your divisions and assign them to the orders. You can also come into your naval tech and grab landing craft 2, which grants an additional 20, or even landing craft 3, which grants an additional 100. And then all you need to do from there is get your navy, go ahead and put them, make sure they're nearby. For example, this navy is where? This navy's over here in Yokohama. That isn't close enough, so I'm actually going to use this navy here that's a bit closer. And I'm going to go ahead and put them on naval invasion support by left-clicking down here, and then right-clicking the sea zones that you can see that your marines or whatever you're invading with will have to cross through. If you want to double-check, because you can't really tell if they're maybe crossing through a sea zone or not, you can come and hover over this, and this will tell you if you don't have supremacy in the zone that you're trying to invade. As you can see, there you go, it says Yellow Sea, we only have 0% naval supremacy, but require 50. You need at least 50% naval supremacy to be able to naval invade. And that's essentially the basics of naval invasion. Alright, I also had quite a few people ask me, how do you play Germany? How do you do Germany and not lose? How do you play Germany and not end up with the entire world at war with you all at once? How do you just do Germany semi-successfully, you know, even if it does end historically and I end up losing? Just how do I even get to that point? Germany is complicated, to say the least. So here is just a really quick tutorial. I'm not going to go too in depth, have a lot of topics to talk about. Can't spend an hour and a half talking about Germany, unfortunately. So I'm just going to go over the very basics of my own personal build. Alright, so first you want to come to your focuses, and you're going to want to pick your first focus. You have a few options for your plan: air innovations, army innovations, Rhineland, naval rearmament, and oppose Hitler. Assuming you're playing historically here, we're just going to rule out this entire path over here about opposing Hitler. And instead, we're going to come over to the Rhineland and take that focus. Now, I do have focus autocomplete on because I don't want to have to play through an entire Germany game just to show you my build. But you're going to go ahead and take Rhineland first focus. For your opening researches, I personally prefer Construction 1, Basic Machine Tools, Medium Tank 1s, Researched by Daimler-Benz, and AT1. And sorry, not basic machine tools. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Electronic mechanical engineering for the research speed is what you need. That's your opening research. What you're going to want to do then, you kind of want to keep one of these research slots on tanks, because what you're next going to do is you're going to grab Army Innovations, and then Treaty with the USSR. Now, Treaty with the USSR is actually the important focus here, so we're not going to touch Army Innovations. But Treaty with the Soviets will grant you, when they accept, a research bonus for armor tech, 2 of them to be specific. This then means that once you finish researching your medium ones, you can actually have 2 choices, because you'll finish Treaty with the Soviets prior to finishing the research for medium ones. You can then either use one of those research bonuses to finish the 1938 medium tank early, or you can save it to spend on medium 2s and later medium 3s. Personally, I prefer to use the first bonus on the medium 1s, get it a bit sooner, then use the second bonus on medium 2s. Then next, you're going to come down here and you're going to grab Army Innovations 2. You're then going to use that bonus to rush your mechanized, right? Then after that, you're going to come down to your industry tree and begin working on your industry. For your plan, into autarky, into Hermann going Werk, into KDF wagon, and then getting your extra research slot. Now, around this time, somewhere whilst you were doing these industrial focuses, the Spanish Civil War would have started. Make sure you send your volunteers to Spain, make sure you send an attaché to Spain, and it's around when the Spanish Civil War starts that I like to begin pumping out troops. By that point, you should have stockpiled enough equipment to start building a very basic infantry army. This will allow you to then have taken... Go ahead and do this real quick. Sorry, that's actually the wrong command. Which one is it? .no checks. This would then have allowed you to come down here and take Anschluss. I prefer doing Anschluss around early to mid 38. That gives the Austrians enough time to have actually built something up here and have built up a stockpile of weaponry for you to then take and use. You're then going to continue spamming out infantry regardless of your deficits. Okay? We're going to do a little thing I like to call deficit spending. You're going to keep going deeper and deeper into this deficit. Don't worry, you'll be fine by the time war starts. Okay? You'll get guns from Anschluss. Those will go into more infantry. Alright? You then want to be taking these next few focuses over here as soon as you can. Okay? You're going to want to immediately, as soon as possible, go into Domain Sudetenland, the First Vienna Award, and Fate of Czechoslovakia. Now you'll see they actually denied these, some of these just simply because historical AI is off. So they actually had denied the Sudetenland there. If you have historical AI on, you won't have to worry about that, but it doesn't matter because I went down and did Fate of Czechs anyway because I've ignored prerequisites on. So things will look a little jank. But you want to rush down those 3. Then once you finish those 3, you can go ahead and do Reassert Eastern Claims, and you can go in for Danziger War. Now, in between doing these, Domain Sudetenland, Fate of Czechoslovakia, and Danziger War all have manpower requirements. So this entire time, you should be pumping out infantry from after you finish Anschluss and just continuously pumping out infantry. While you're waiting for that infantry to come out, you should be going over here and doing Reichsautobahn. And once you finish Reichsautobahn, you're then going to want to go ahead and build synthetic refineries here, 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 and here. Reason being is because these states now have 100% infrastructure, which you got for free from Reichsautobahn, these will build a lot faster, and synthetic refineries are quite expensive. They're more expensive than civilian factories, but they are extremely, extremely important, especially for Germany, a nation who loses access to rubber supplies. When you go to war with the Dutch, you lose this. When you go to war with the British, you lose this, and you lose that. It'd be difficult for you to trade overseas with nations like Brazil, who would have a decent sized rubber supply, so your only real rubber supply would be Siam, who does not have that much. So you'll need to be producing your own rubber internally with synthetic refineries. Now for the rest of your construction from 1936 until 1937, civs. Once it turns 1937, that's about when I like to switch over to building mills. You need those mills to be able to get enough guns, tanks, airplanes, and everything that you need to compete with the Allied production. The Allies will scale harder in the long term than you will, so you need to make sure that your army is up to snuff early on for those early victories. Now, after you send your attaché to Spain, you should have enough war support to have gone Wariko. If you didn't, don't worry, German war economy here will put you on Wariko so long as you have enough war support. If you weren't able to get the PP to get war economy before getting to here, that's fine. Preferably, you just send the attaché to Spain and then spend the PP to grab Wariko. But then you'll come down here and you'll grab German war economy because that gives you an extra 6 mils. Or if you feel like playing the waiting game, not taking those 6 mils up front, what you can do, and what technically is the better play if you can ensure it, is going this focus that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, align Romania, align Hungary, and integrating the war economies. This will actually grant you 4 military factories if Hungary accepts, and another 4 military factories if Romania accepts, granting you 8 military factories rather than 6. This will also give 4 military factories to Hungary and to Romania if they accept, and make them a puppet. Though do be careful, because you do need both of them in the faction for them to get the event. If they're not in the faction, they won't get the event, and you'll be wasting your time and your factories, because you would have gotten more doing German War Eco if you're only going to get one of these, not both. It is worthwhile to, but also between doing focuses over here, grab coal liquidization and synthetic rubber. This will make your synthetic refineries even better. And so coal liquidization gives you 1 free refinery and a research bonus for synthetic, which you're going to use on, more than likely it should be rubber too, because you should be researching these rubber techs as you go on through the game. Then on top of that, synthetic rubber increases all of your synthetic rubbers, all your synthetic refineries by +2. Mind you, each one of these only grants +1, so you essentially get, in 70 days, you get 2 of these researched. Your synthetic refineries will be better than anyone else's in the game. Another thing you want to try to grab while doing in between these focuses is go down from air innovations and into tactical air effort. This will give you a 1x 100% research bonus from medium aircraft and light aircraft, which you're going to want to use that bonus to get your fighter 2s. This is especially important if you're playing single player, where you don't have a Romania to rush fighter 2s for you. If you're playing multiplayer, doing this isn't as important, because you will likely have a Romania or an Italy who can rush those fighter 2s for you, and then it isn't such a big deal. Then, of course, you're going to want to go ahead and do Danzig or war when possible. So remember, in between doing these focuses, industrial tech first, then industrial focuses first, then air focuses, and then of course the navy focuses take 3rd place on importance, but they are there and they are decent to take. Naval rearmament, for example, only takes 35 days, and same with naval effort. And just like that, you just got another 5 dockyards, as well as some research bonuses that you honestly won't use. The only real reason to come down here is for U-boat effort, which will grant you the cruiser submarine hull, going through trade interdiction and getting modular construction, which will make your submarines 10% cheaper. You now have the best submarines in the game and can build them really quickly. You can then also do expand the dockyards for even more dockyards, and you see, just like that, if I go ahead and unpause the game and let my dockyards update, letting it tick over, 21 dockyards. Mind you, the United States of America starts the game with 22, and Britain starts the game with 19. And you just got all of those for free. Not to mention, you can come down here to crossing the Atlantic, if you're really willing to, and you can swap out mills for dockyards in all of your coastal territories. And seeing as the dockyards are cheaper than mills, that isn't really worth it in my opinion, but it is an option that you have. Now, after taking Danzig War, actually before we get into that, you have the 2nd Vienna Award, which will bring Hungary closer into your fold. Now, I suggest doing Northern Transylvania if you have historical AI on, or Romania will likely say no, and it could result in an early World War II. Or you can give Hungary all of Transylvania. It really is just up to you. But give Hungary North Transylvania. That'll essentially bind Hungary to you and make them more likely to stick around with you if you have historical off, for example. If you have spare time between getting to Danzig War, say you're just waiting for manpower, you can come down and do Demand Slovenia, the First Lubezhenia Award, Fate of Yugoslavia. I suggest doing my puppets of both. That's the one they're most likely to accept, and then you can just get Yugoslavia for free. The 2nd Lubezhenia Award. You want to do Let Us Bind Bulgaria to Us, which will do a similar thing as the 2nd Vienna Award does with them. And then you want to just do Fate of Greece. Personally, I'm fine with, in single player at least, delaying Danzig War if it means getting through these focuses first. because it essentially just completely cleans the Balkans up. You get Yugoslavia, you get Greece, Bulgaria would join your faction, Hungary would join your faction. It's just a matter of waiting for Romania to get their crap together. Romania does usually take a while to join the Axis. It usually waits until the Soviets demand Bessarabia, which happens around late 40 usually. But then after all of that, you're finally ready for war. You go Danziger War, and around the Maginot, you kill Poland, you kill the Benelux, then you kill France. Then if you want to go clean up your northern border, you can take Operation Weserberg. That will go ahead and give you war goals on Denmark and Norway. When you declare war on Denmark, they will immediately surrender, so you don't need to worry about that. And when you declare war on Norway, they will get a civil war. Now, this only happens if you have the new DLC, Arms Against Tyranny. I can't tell you what it does if you're on the latest patch without that DLC, unfortunately, as I haven't done any testing over there yet. But if you have it, that'll start a civil war over in Norway, allowing you to very quickly ferry an army across and conquer Norway. Obviously, starting World War II will bypass war with France, and from there, it's just a matter of anti-Comintern Pact into war with the Soviets, which will then give you, when you declare war on Russia, give you a nice bonus here, Operation Barbarossa, which will give you a 10% attack and 5% defense bonus against Russia for 6 months. Use that to your advantage. It is extremely important. Also, at some point, if you want to come grab a German-Swedish trade agreement, this is a new focus that they added, and I haven't really found a place to fit it into my build yet. I kind of just take it when I feel that I have some spare time, a spare 70 days to take it. It's a decent thing to take. It will grant you the resources to this Swedish state right here, which is decent, in return for giving Sweden some factories. And that is the basic focus order. And honestly, that's about as in-depth as I want to go into on this video about a German build. If you guys want to see a more in-depth German build, I can do one. Just let me know, honestly. Alright, so I got a lot of questions about army and how to build divisions specifically. So let's go over to the division designer, get myself some XP, and actually, one second, I'm actually going to do something. Here is actually a single player Germany save that I was in the middle of. Haven't really done anything here yet, so I figured this was a perfect opportunity to show you guys what kind of my military looks like as Germany here in the early war. So this is kind of my standard go-to early war division. This is 6 infantry battalions, 1 artillery, a shovel, a support artillery, and I would actually throw in a recon here. I'm gonna do that now, actually. I don't know why I hadn't done that before. Might have been in the middle of doing something else, but this is the solid division I go with. This thing isn't not good. To be clear, this is not a division meant to push. This is a division meant to sit on the line and hold the line and stop the enemy infantry from pushing us back. The real backbone of my German army is, and always is, tank divisions. This is the tank I'm going with kind of in this game. I haven't actually finished this template yet. I need to finish the support companies and obviously swap this motorized out for mechanized at some point, which, if I'm not mistaken, I might have even already researched mech in this game. Yes, I have. I'm just waiting to produce enough of it to actually start flooding it into the division. You also see that I'm still making light tanks. That is for light tank recon, which is right here, which is actually what I'll be swapping that motorized recon out for. You can also see a bit better of what my Germany build actually is and what a decent Germany build will look like in July 39. You see I have 127 of these infantry divisions, and I already have 3 light tanks ready to go. These are actually over in Spain. That's why you see that these 2 are seasoned, for example. I'll actually be swapping these over to medium tanks at some point in the near future. But essentially, this is my preferred go-to cheap but defensible design for infantry. As for offensive designs, I don't really do offensive infantry too often, but you would essentially just take this and scale it up quite a bit. Something like this, for example, is solid. This is 8 infantry, 3 artillery. You can also technically go with the OG7-2. That isn't bad these days. I don't like it. I honestly think I prefer the 9.3. Go for a nice 27 with. That's solid. And honestly, that's about it. It's pretty simple when it comes to basic infantry. And here's a decent tank division. Again, this is not in its final form. I'm not done with my doctrine. This actually isn't even the meta doctrine for tanks anymore. It's Grand Battle Plan now, and then going assault. But there you go. Okay, so I had quite a few people ask me about interesting miners to play. And for single player, I'm gonna be honest, the allied miners just aren't interesting to play. From my experience, I would say I've had the most fun in single player playing Bulgaria, Hungary, Finland, there they are, and then China and Kami China are the nations I've had the most fun, and Poland as well. Poland was a decent playthrough. All of those are nations that can easily get powerful enough to consider themselves majors, whether it's Austria-Hungary, the Balkan Federation, Scandinavia, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, simply putting China back together. Those are all nations that can handle themselves given enough time. And for that reason, I have to say that those are my go-to miners when playing single player. Alright, here we are back on Germany in a different save. And I got a question about the German Civil War and what's the best way to win it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on focus autocomplete so I can do this quite quickly, just to skip the waiting 70 days here. I'm going to take a post-Hitler. That will start the German Civil War, putting you on the side of the German military junta. You're then going to want to go ahead and select your entire army, go ahead and throw them under a field marshal, separate out your tanks, and split this into an army that's actually 24. Select the entire front line here, and you're going to want to cross this arrow here. You're going to cut through Czechoslovakia and cut a second arrow there. This will give you two separate arrows and split your army just like that along those lines. If you want to simplify that a bit, you could also do this, and instead of what I'm doing here is shift clicking to get the field marshal front line like that. But if you just left click by itself, that will automatically break it down into this. But as you can see, these are backwards and not the way I actually want them. The 12 is up there and the 24 is down there. So I prefer this one a bit more. That'll also allow the divisions to shuffle themselves around more freely. So we're gonna go with this. And from here, you're going to then take your tanks. Now, I personally like to promote Rommel. I don't actually have command power because I didn't let the game unpause. So I'm gonna go ahead and give myself some command power. I like to promote Rommel to Field Marshal and assign him as my tank's Field Marshal. Then take Manstein, because Guderian already starts with Panzer Leader. You just need to actually give him Panzer Expert. Manstein does not, and Manstein is the one with Engineer, meaning you can grant him Fortress Buster. I like to level up Manstein and try to get him Panzer Leader. So, take your army. You're going to want to go ahead and assign a Field Marshal. I like to sort. You can sort here by ascending or descending order. I like to sort by highest attack in this case. And go ahead and grab Gunther von Kluge, Fida von Bock, and Maximilian von Wix. That'll assign your army generals. And then you're simply going to take your tanks, send Manstein to about here, set a spearhead front line. That's the one right next to the regular offensive line. Right click, and there you go. Then you're gonna want to go ahead and grab your air force and bring them all back over to Germany. I'm gonna pause here. And deploy it to begin your offensives. Now, I'm actually going to deploy most of my air here in the south, simply because of the fact that I like to push in the south first. So then you're kind of just gonna go ahead and, as soon as they stop attacking me, start pushing them back with your tanks. And with your complete air superiority and Manstein's additional 20% attack and defense on core territory, you find that it's quite easy to simply rip right across the front line. Make sure not to get your tanks encircled in cover areas like that. Oh, by the way, for those pings, holding Control and Alt, and then left clicking will drop a defensive ping. And if you do Control Alt and Shift and left click, you'll get an offensive ping. And they do make different noises, and it's good for multiplayer. If you plan on playing multiplayer, you need to show your allies what your plans are, or if you need them to focus on a specific area. And there you go, just like that, you've cut the German Reich's army in half, and then you're just going to focus your efforts on cleaning up the south, getting encirclements. Well, essentially this is just one giant encirclement. You're going to want to kind of leave your tanks here in this area, so I'm actually going to delete their order so that they'll sit here in this area, because you want them to sit and defend this until you can push this a bit deeper down, because this is quite hard to hold. As you can tell, there's no supply there, and we don't exactly have the trucks to motorize our supply, so our supply is going to be stuck using cavalry. And because of the low supply, it means it'd be very easy for them to just simply push us out of here and break their troops out of this encirclement, but we don't want that. So we're just going to go ahead and very discreetly just keep pushing across the front line, not attacking into the tank preferably. And from this point forward, it's simply just a matter of time. Not a matter of if, but of when we deal enough damage to their army in the south here. Because this army down here is starving. If we're to tag over here right now, you would see that they are just not getting any supply. And as you can see, they aren't re-equipping. For example, this division here is just sitting with no equipment, and would be extremely easy to beat back. We're just going to keep pushing, take Nuremberg, and from here, it's just a matter of cleaning up the south, like I said, and then you'll send these troops back north to begin pushing there. Simple, but intuitive. Alright, so we're actually over here on Steam instead of in-game over on HOI, because I got a few very interesting questions about what my favorite mods are and what mods are good to play. So I figured I'd pull up my Steam and show my list of mods. So I actually don't even use a lot of these. I just still am subscribed to them. For example, realistic core events, I haven't used in quite some time. I like anime history. Just it swaps the portraits of the game out. It's a decent mod. Up to you if you like that. It swaps the portraits out for anime characters. It's cool. Black Ice. This is actually an event mod for Black Ice. Here's actual Black Ice. This is a super historical immersion mod. It's super difficult. I would not recommend it to beginners, but if you feel that you've kind of gotten used to the game and are great at it and just want to make the game a challenge again without just turning the AI's difficulty up where they just cheat, this is a great mod for that. There's Cold War and Current World Divided, which is essentially just a Cold War mod. Colored Puppets is a decent quality of life mod along with coring buttons. Equestria at War is my favorite mod on the workshop. It gets a lot of hate for being the pony mod, air quotes, but it's solid. I enjoy it. It's the best mod the game has to offer. And of course I swap out the ponies for anime girls because I'm basic. You have Kaiser Redux, which is very similar to Kaiser Reich, if you've heard of that one, which is what if Germany won World War II, except Kaiser Redux is essentially a spin-off mod where they keep in a lot of the funnier things that actual Kaiser Reich got rid of. Magna Europa. If you want to get good at microing, this is the mod for you. Magna Europa essentially zooms the map in to only cover Europe and make, like, it's a full-size map but with only Europe, so there's just a lot of micro in it, and I really recommend it if that's what you're trying to get good at. Novum Vexillum is the go-to modern-day mod at this point, though you do need quite a few sub-mods to actually make it worth your while. There's Over Blues, which I don't really personally like, but my friends like it a lot, so we play it a lot. It's a Fallout-based mod, so if you're into Fallout, you'll probably like that. There's player-led peace conferences, which essentially just gives the player full control over the peace conferences and everything in it. It's honestly really important if you like to do more realistic peace deals, as it allows you to stop the AI from doing their weird shenanigans. There's Road to 56 RP, which is based on the Road to 56 mod, which is down here, which spans the game with extra content to get you up to 1956. And then the RP version has a bunch of other mods essentially integrated in it just for quality of life and specifically for roleplay, which is what the RP stands for. Then there's State Transfer Tool. I specifically have the multiplayer version because I play a lot of multiplayer with my friends. But the State Transfer Tool just allows you to transfer states between countries and simple stuff like that. Again, good quality of life mod. Strategic View Adjustments messes with the battle planning Again, quality of life mod that I do recommend. You have the Road to 56 and another version of the Road to 56 RP. Not really going to get into those because I basically said everything I need to say about Road to 56 earlier. You have Spot Optimization, which is a multiplayer mod mostly that is meant to just run the game faster. And Yojo Senki, which is another mod based on an anime. But that mod is still in early development, so I'd give it a little bit before you try that one out. Alright, so after sitting here for an hour and talking my butt off, I still have yet to cover even a quarter of all of the comments I got and the questions I got, and more are still actively coming in. So if you want to see more of this and maybe a part 2 to this discussion where I just talk about the very basics of HOI in a very quick and hopefully it was simple to understand format. Obviously I didn't go too in depth on too many things and did spend like 20 minutes just talking about how to play Germany without even going in depth on it. So again, if you want to see more in depth video specifically about any of these topics, let me know. But I think I'm going to do another part of this where I just keep going down the list of comments and questions I got and answering them. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed and learned something new, and have fun playing HOI4, Generals.